Hello everyone, welcome back to English Classes Online. My name is Benjamin. Today's video is on how to identify grammatical names and functions in the West African Senior School Certificate Examination, English. This is part of our English Grammar Lesson series, and if you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Click on the bell icon as well so that whenever new videos are uploaded on this channel, you will be notified instantly. Without much ado, let's dive into the lesson. First, we start with the agenda for this episode. Number 1, what is a grammatical name and why is it important? 2, what is a grammatical function and why is it important? 3, how can we identify grammatical names and functions? And number 4, past questions and how to solve them. All these and much more we shall be looking at one by one. Starting with the first, what is a grammatical name and why is it important? A grammatical name is the name given to a word, phrase, or clause according to the work it does in a sentence. There are various units of grammar in English and they have their specific names, such as morphemes, words, phrases, clauses, and sentences. Your knowledge of English grammar has to do with being able to identify these grammatical units one by one. Of course, these grammatical units make up the structure of the English language. For example, a morpheme is the smallest indivisible unit of grammar that sets meaning apart. Morphemes combine to form a word, words combine to form a phrase, phrases combine to form a clause, and clauses combine to form a sentence. And so your knowledge of this structure of the English language and how these various structures combine to form the higher unit and how we use these combinations in very proper manners to communicate our ideas in the language is really very, very important. Your knowledge of English grammar has to do with being able to identify these grammatical units one by one, being able to name them, being able to use them for their exact purposes. Now, for example, English words are classified into 8 parts of speech. That's going by the traditional classification. 8 traditional parts of speech, and they have their specific names, which are as follows: nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. Now, these are the various word classes, or what traditionally are known as the parts of speech. Now, English phrases are classified into noun phrase, adverbial phrase, adjectival phrase, prepositional phrase, and so on and so forth. Of course, the clauses are also classified as noun clause, adverbial clause, and adjectival or relative clause. Of course, we have other classifications, such as when we look at the structural classification of the clauses, we can now talk about the dependent and independent clause, or the main clause and the subordinate clause. Now, The sentence, which is the largest grammatical unit, is also classified into different classes. You have the simple sentence, the compound sentence, complex sentence, compound complex sentence, multiple sentence, and multiple complex sentence. Of course, I have uploaded a video that gives you this classification, the 6 classes of sentences in English, with copious examples. You will find a link to that video in the description section below. There's another classification according to function, such as you have the declarative sentence, which is called a statement, the imperative sentence, which is called a command, the interrogative sentence, which is called a question, the exclamatory sentence, which is called an interjection, and the optative sentence, which is called a request or a prayer, if you like. Now, these various types of grammatical structures are very important. Now, let's come to the second item on our agenda. What is a grammatical function and why is it important? Now, a grammatical function or grammatical function is the work done by a word or phrase in the context of a particular clause or sentence. The function of a word or group of words, the function a word or group of words performs depends on the position it occupies within the sentence structure. Consider the sentence, the boy kicked the ball into the net. Now let's look at this sentence specifically. The boy kicked the ball into the net. We can break the sentence into the following parts. The boy, that is one unit. Kicked, another unit. The ball, another unit. Into the net, another unit. So we can look at these various units, all right, and each of them, as a matter of fact, occupies a particular position. So we shall be looking at this specifically. So now we can look at these various components of this particular sentence. The boy kicked the ball into the net. Now when we look at this specifically, you can discover that we have different positions. The boy occupies what we call the subject position. Kicked occupies what we call the verb position. The ball occupies what we call the object position. And into the net occupies what we call the adjunct position. All right? So these are the various grammatical positions, and the function that a particular word or group of words really does, or the function it performs, depends on the position it occupies. When a word or group of words occupies the subject position, it performs the function of the subject. We are going to look at this specifically one by one. All right? Now let's proceed. Okay. Now the first group of words, the boy, is a noun phrase. All right? That is a noun phrase, the boy. You know, that is the name. It's a noun phrase. And, you know, and it performs the function of subject in the sentence. Why? We have seen that it occupies the subject position. What is a subject? A subject is the doer of the action or the person being talked about or being discussed in the sentence. That is the subject. The subject is the person or thing we are talking about. And in some cases, the subject is performing the action reported by the verb in the sentence. For example, when we look at the boy kicked the ball into the net, the verb kicked, you know, reports an action. and this action is performed by the boy. The boy is the noun phrase performing the function of the subject, the doer of the action. So this is how we really begin to identify. We will be able to name the grammatical structure. We give it its grammatical name. It is a noun phrase. Now we know that a noun is a naming word, or a word that tells us the name of a person, or the name of a place, or the name of an object, or anything. Everything in this life has a name, and the name we call it is the noun. Now, if we have a group of words that give us the name of a person or the name of anything, that is no longer simply a noun. It becomes a noun phrase or a noun clause. All right, so we shall be looking at all these specifically. Now we can see that the boy, which is a noun phrase, is performing the function of the subject, the doer of the action. Then other elements in the sentence are kicked. Kicked is the verb. Now the ball is the object, and into the net is the adjunct. So here we have a sentence that has the following structure: S plus V plus O plus A. So this is the structure of the sentence. We have S, V, O, A. All right, please don't mind the. All right, so SVOA, subject, verb, object, adjunct. All right, so that is the structure, and we have been able to look at how to name the grammatical structure, how to give it its grammatical name, and then how to identify the function it performs. And this is exactly the way it works. So we shall go ahead to look at other aspects of this very interesting topic. You will agree with me that it's really getting more and more interesting, and of course it is very important to learn aspects of English grammar if you are going to use it effectively. Now let's look at item 3 in our agenda. How can we identify grammatical names and function? All right, and functions. All right, so this is actually a typo here. All right, this is actually a typo here. Let's cancel this too. How can we identify grammatical names and functions? That is exactly this item. All right, so now let's look at how we can do it. All right, let's wipe these marks here, so we should be able to do justice to this. First, we identify grammatical names by examining the grammatical class it belongs to and according to the job it does in a sentence. I gave you the example of the English parts of speech, or what we call the word classes. Nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, prepositions, conjunctions, interjections. These are various classes of words, according to the work they do in English sentences. And so we identify grammatical names by examining the grammatical class a grammatical structure belongs to. Like let's return to our previous example. The boy kicked the ball into the net. Now we can see these various elements of this sentence. The boy is a noun phrase. why do we say it's a noun phrase? We identify the name as a noun phrase, the grammatical name as a noun phrase, because this is a group of words that is telling us, the name of a person or a thing. And we can use certain evidences to prove this. How do we do it? Now, let's eliminate this particular group of words in question. Let's pretend that this doesn't exist here. Let's put a dash. If we say dash kicked the ball into the net, what are you going to ask? You are going to ask a question. Who or what kicked the ball into the net? So that tells you who or what is either a person or a thing. So certainly that gives us the clue that this group of words is telling us about a person or a thing. And the only thing that can identify a person or a thing is a noun or a noun phrase or a noun clause, as the case may be. So this is how we identify the grammatical name. Now, we can replace the boy here with Messi as the name of a footballer. We can say Messi kicked the ball into the net. And when we say Messi, that is a proper noun. That is the name of a particular person, a particular footballer. Messi kicked the ball into the net. So that shows us that this is really a noun phrase, because Messi is a single word, and that is why it's a noun. The boy is made up of two words, and that gives us a noun phrase. Now, the word kicked is a verb, all right? Is a verb, and why do we call it a verb? We call it a verb because it is reporting an action. A verb reports either an action or a state of being, all right? So we have two major types of verbs: action verbs and being verbs. Now, action verbs report action, such as kicked. When you say kicked, then you are talking about an action taken by someone, all right? Now, if you say the boy is a footballer, is a verb of being, because it is reporting a state of existence. But here, kicked is reporting action, and so it is a verb. Now, how do we identify the ball? The ball equally is a noun phrase because it is telling us the name of something. If we omit, if we omit this, if we omit the ball and we say the boy kicked dash into the net, the question will be what? The boy kicked what into the net? Now, whenever a question what or who is asked, the only thing that will answer the question is a noun or a noun phrase or a noun clause. Now, there is also a question that we can raise to test whether what occupies this position is a verb. If we say the boy dashed the ball into the net, all right? The boy dashed the ball into the net. Now, we are going to look for something that corresponds with do, which is an action. And the question here will be, did what? The boy did what? What did he do? The ball. Or what action did he perform on the ball? That actually is the question that will naturally arise here. And when we say the boy kicked the dash into the net, so of course the question here will be, kicked what into the net? Was it a stone or a ball that he kicked into the net? So, and the answer is the ball. That is a noun phrase. Now, into the net is called an adjunct because it is telling us about a place. All right? And an adjunct is an adverbial that tells us, expresses different ideas about place, about time, and so on and so forth. Now, a number of questions arise if we say the boy kicked the ball. When did the boy kick the ball? We can say during the match, all right, or in the World Cup. Where did he kick the ball? Into the net, all right? And a whole lot of questions. How did he kick the ball? The boy kicked the ball hard into the net, or beautifully. He kicked the ball, he kicked the ball, probably he kicked the ball beautifully into the net or something like that. So a whole lot of questions can arise as to how the action can be described. And adverbials describe the action. From a verb, you have an adverb. An adverb or an adverbial is a word or a group of words that adds meaning or gives extra information about a verb. So these are different ways of identifying the name, the grammatical names. We identify the grammatical names of grammatical structures or expressions by examining the grammatical class they belong to, and also examining the type of work or the role or the function they perform in a sentence. So this we have been examining. We identify the boy here as a noun phrase because this group of words gives us the name of a person, and any word that names a person, place, or thing is a noun. If it is two or more words, it is a noun phrase, as the case may be. In some cases, if it contains a verb and a subject, then it will be a noun clause. Then we identify kicked as a verb because it expresses an action. All this we have already looked at, and this gives us the answer to the question, how do we identify the grammatical names? All right, so now let's move a little further. Now, the second thing we need to understand is that we identify the grammatical function of a word or group of words by the specific position it occupies within the sentence structure, coupled with the role it plays in it. Again, you can see, let's again use the previous example, all right? The previous example, which is the boy kicked the ball into the net. We identify the boy as subject because it occupies the subject position, which is usually the initial position in a declarative sentence. Here, the structure of the sentence is SVOA, subject, verb, object, adjunct. Moreover, the boy, being a person, a noun phrase, usually performs an action reported in an English sentence. So this is how we identify the function. All right? The doer of the word or the performer of a function or the doer of an action, if you like, in a sentence is usually the subject. And that is how we identify the grammatical function. Now, there are 5 elements of sentence which indicate the possible positions that words or groups of words can occupy within a sentence structure. All right? Now, let's look at this. Now, these elements are contained in the acronym SVOCA, or what I can call SVOCA. Now, number 1 is the subject. The subject is the doer of an action or the person or thing being talked about. When we say the boy kicked the ball into the net. The boy is the subject because the boy is the doer of the action of kicking the ball. And of course, the boy is the subject because it's the person being talked about. His action is being reported. Now, number 2, the verb is the word or group that reports an action or being in a sentence. The word kicked describes an action. That is why it is called the verb. Number 3, the object. This is the receiver of an action done by another. All right? Now, in that sentence, the boy kicked the ball into the net. The ball is the object because the ball receives the action of kicking performed by the subject, the boy. The boy is the doer of the action, is the one who kicks the ball. The ball is the object that has been kicked. So it receives the action performed by the subject. So that's what the object is. Then we have a complement. A complement is a word or group of words that describes the subject or completes its meaning. Now, for example, if we say, let's use the word Messi. If we say Messi is a footballer, all right? Messi is a footballer. All right, so let's attempt to analyze this. So here we have Messi. Right? We have 3 elements here. Messi is the subject. Is the verb. And, well, let me try to okay. Okay. I want you to see it clearly. Messi is a footballer. Okay. Now let's try to. Okay, so now let's attempt to do something quite interesting here. Okay, so Messi is the subject here. Is the verb. A footballer is the complement. So now I just want to explain to you what we mean by complement. Now, the complement here is a footballer. And we say that the complement is the description of the subject. So here, Messi is the subject, a footballer is the complement. And the footballer here is telling us about Messi, is describing Messi. So that is what a complement is. And a complement always comes after a linking verb. Messi is or Messi was. All right? Whenever you have a linking verb after the subject, what is going to complete it is a complement. And a complement is usually a noun or a noun phrase or a noun clause or an adjective. All right? Something that would tell us more about the subject. So this is just to give you idea of what we mean by the complement. Then the adjunct is a word or group of words that completes the meaning of the verb or gives extra information about the action expressed in a sentence. And so that is exactly what we have in the sentence. The boy kicked the ball into the net. Into the net, it's giving us extra information about the action. The boy kicked the ball. An action has been performed. But then the adjunct tells us where, when, or how the action occurred. All right, so that is exactly what the action. And sometimes the adjunct provides answer to the WH questions: when, where, why, how. All these questions, WH questions, we have the answer provided by the adjunct, with the exception of what. It is a noun or the subject that provides answer to the question what or who. All right, but when it comes to when, where, why, how, these questions are answered by the adjunct that give us extra information about the action reported in a sentence. So these are the 5 elements of the sentence. If you look at the description box below this video on this channel, you will find a link that will give you access to a video on the elements of the sentence. Elements of the sentence. That video gives you a complete lecture on these 5 elements of the sentence: the subject, the verb, the object, the adjunct, and how they are used in English sentences. All right, so you can look up that very lecture, that video lecture, and you can learn more. Okay, so now let's go further. Now let's look at past questions and how to solve them. We want to look at past WAEC questions or West African Senior Certificate examinations questions about grammatical names and functions. So let's begin to examine them, and then I will show you how to answer the questions. Let's begin with the immediate past question, that is West African Senior School Certificate Examination of last year, June 2020. And if you look at that, you will find the theory question number 6. This question usually occurs within the comprehension section, all right? And that is a grammatical question under comprehension. Now, here we are given the full sentence in the passage where this particular expression underlined is taken. The full sentence in that passage reads as follows: Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger who was also going to see her son in Lagos. All right, something was omitted here. The word in was omitted here, so let's put it. All right, so we can then look at it here. Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger. Now underlined here is who was also going to see her son in Lagos. Now the questions that are asked are as follows, and we have question F in that particular WAEC question. And then we are given this: who was also going to see her son in Lagos. That is the expression, the grammatical structure that was taken from the passage. And then 2 questions are asked concerning this grammatical structure or expression. Question I: what grammatical name is given to the above expression as used in the passage? So we identify the grammatical name by examining how the expression is used in the passage. And then question II, what is its function? All right, so we have to go back to the full sentence in the passage and see how this expression has been used. Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger who was also going to see her son in Lagos. Now, let me show you how we actually identify the grammatical name. First, we can use what I call the border principle. Now, the border principle. This is the border. This is exactly the grammatical expression that we are asked to identify its name or to give its name. Then we come in this sentence and we look at the border that this expression shares. You know, it shares a border with the word passenger. We have to take note of that because you can understand that there is something we call collocation, which has to do with words that keep company with other words. And we examine the meaning of a word in a sentence in the light of the words that it is used with, you know. And collocation refers to two or more words that go together, that are used together in a sentence. All right, so that is why we use the border principle. This expression shares a border with the word passenger. Then, having identified the border, we are now using the border principle. I want you to pay attention because if you really understand this grammatical technique, you will find it very easy to identify the names and functions of grammatical structures wherever you find them. Now, having identified the border using the border principle, the second principle or the second method we are going to use is what I call the questioning method. We have to raise a question. You know, we have to raise a question. And how do we raise a question? We put a full stop. We pretend that this word, this expression doesn't exist. We eliminate it so that we'll be able to raise a question. And so we say, Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger. Then we put a full stop. Now, what occurs naturally here is that by eliminating the underlined expression, we make the sentence somehow incomplete. That will prompt us to raise a natural question. Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger. Now, the question that arises naturally is which passenger? Which passenger? You know, because here a passenger has been mentioned here, and we want to know the particular passenger that the speaker is talking about. So that compels us to raise a question about the identity of this fellow passenger. And we want additional information about this passenger. Mama chatted heartily with a fellow passenger, and we put a full stop. We eliminate this underlined expression, and the question that arises naturally is which passenger are you talking about? All right. Now, what provides answer to the question which passenger is who was also going to see her son in Lagos. Now, that gives us very clear idea about what this expression here is all about, because it is telling us which passenger is being talked about. And you need to understand that every grammatical structure or every grammatical class provides information to a certain question. when we wanted to look at to identify the grammatical name for the boy in our previous example, we raised a question. We omitted that expression. The boy kicked the ball into the net, and then we eliminated the boy and we say Dash kicked the ball into the net. And the question that arises naturally is who or what kicked the ball into the net. That gives us an idea as to the type of grammatical class we are dealing with, because any grammatical class or word class that answers the question what or who is a noun or a noun clause or a noun phrase. Now, you need to understand that any word class that provides answer to the question which is essentially an adjective, an adjectival phrase, or an adjectival clause. Now, how do we differentiate among adjective, adjectival phrase, and adjectival clause? Very simple. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun or a pronoun or that describes a person or thing. That is an adjective. Now, an adjectival phrase is a group of words that tells us more about a noun or a pronoun or tells us about someone or something. Now, a group of words. Now, a clause is also a group of words, but the difference between a phrase and a clause is that a clause contains a subject and a verb, whereas a clause contains a subject and a verb, whereas a phrase contains simply a fragment, does not contain a subject and a verb. That's the difference. We saw the boy is a phrase. It's just a fragment. It doesn't contain a subject and a verb. But when we look at who was also going to see her son in Lagos, we discover that it contains a subject, who, which contains a verb, which is was also going to see her son in Lagos. So exactly, we can see that this is a clause because it contains a subject and a verb. All right, so that shows us that this is a clause that comes from the adjectival family, and that precisely is an adjectival clause because it is a group of words that is describing a person. And if it is telling us more about a person, it's from the adjectival family. If it contains a subject and a verb, it's an adjectival clause. If it is a single word, it's an adjective. If it is simply a group of words that doesn't contain a subject and a verb, it is an adjectival phrase. So that is how we identify this as an adjectival clause. And so when we come to the solution, if you are sitting your West African Senior School Certificate Examination, once you have identified the name, you don't need to come here and start writing any long sentence. No. The question is simply, what is the name? What is the grammatical name? What grammatical name is given to the above expression as used in a sentence? It doesn't require you to start explaining anything. Simply write F, which is the question alphabet, then I, which is the Roman figure that identifies the actual question. All right? One of the mistakes some candidates make is that they change what the examiner has already put in his question. You know, if the question is question F, then your solution should be solution F. All right, so, and F has two sub-questions, I and II. All right, so you come to the first one. It is FI, where you simply state adjectival clause. That is how to answer this question. Then the next one is as answer to question II, what is its function? Now, what is function here? Now, modifies the noun passenger, because that is exactly what it is doing here. The grammatical function it is performing here is that it is describing the word passenger, and the grammatical terminology for describing is modifies. So here we come to II and we write modifies the noun passenger. All right. So that is how to present your answers. All right. So I hope this is understood. Now let's go to the next question, the next past question, so that we can look at it, and that is West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2019. Theory question 6. If you pick the past question paper, you will see it exactly. When you go to the theory question, the theory section, then you will find number 6, which is the comprehension, and then in the passage you will find within the passage a particular expression where you will read, but when I discovered that I could take care of myself, I worked even harder. All right, so now let's look at it here. That is the full sentence. We just took this from the full sentence in the passage. But when I discovered that I could take care of myself, I worked even harder. And the underlined expression here is that I could take care of myself. Now the questions are as follows. Incidentally, the question alphabet here is H. And then the expression underlined is presented here, and then questions are asked on it. So in quote, we have that I could take care of myself. Question I, what grammatical name is given to the above expression as used in the passage? Question II, what is function? Now let's look at the solution. Again, our solution should reflect the alphabet question, which is H, and then question I should have solution I. And then let's look at how the word is used here. How is the expression used in this sentence? But when I discovered that I could take care of myself, I worked even harder. Now let's attempt to use the border principle we earlier learned. Now, that I could take care of myself is the underlined expression, and then it shares a common border with the word discovered. Now, what is the word class of discovered? Of course, it's a verb. All right. Now, let's put a full stop after discovered, and let us pretend that this expression does not exist. And so we say, but when I discovered, full stop. All right? Then it raises a question naturally. I want you to master this principle. First, we identify the border, which we call the border principle. We use the border principle. This expression underlined here shares a common border with the word discovered. Then we identify the word class of discovered and we say it is a verb. All right. Then we eliminate. That is also what is called the elimination method. In mathematics, you have elimination. Sometimes you eliminate something so you can try to find a substitute for it. All right. So we use the elimination method here. But when I discovered, we put a full stop. A question arises naturally because we have interrupted the course of this particular expression. We have eliminated a chunk of, a major part of the sentence. So it raises a question because it creates doubt. it makes the meaning incomplete, and it compels us to raise a natural question, like someone who finds something missing and he's asking, where is it? All right. So, but when I discovered, full stop, what question arises naturally? And I want to ask you, the listener, I want you to try to find the question that arises by yourself. What do you think should be the question? But when I discovered, full stop, what are you going to ask me? Now, I said this to your hearing, but when I discovered, and then I just pause at that moment, and you want to find out more about what I am saying, you are going to ask me a question. What are you going to ask me? The question naturally here is what? But when I discovered, the question is, discovered what? Now remember, there is a word class that provides answer to this kind of question. Can you still remember? With what we discussed in our previous example before we started solving the past question. The boy kicked the ball into the net, and then we eliminated the boy and we put a dash. Dash kicked the ball into the net. And the question that arises is what or who kicked the ball into the net? And we said that the word class that provides answer to that question is a noun or a noun phrase or a noun clause, because essentially when you talk of what or who, that is about a person or a thing. And a similar thing is playing out here. But when I discovered, full stop, discovered what? Now, what the information that is going to be provided here has to do with something. Something. What? What did you discover? You discovered something, and that something must be a noun or a noun clause or a noun phrase. All right. So that actually gives us a very clear idea as to the kind of grammatical class we are looking for. We have discovered that it is a noun from a noun family. Now we examine the expression here. If it is a single word, it should be a noun. If it is a group of words, then we have to find out whether this group of words contains a subject and a verb. If it contains a subject and a verb, then it's a noun clause. If it doesn't contain a subject and a verb, if the group of words is simply a fragment that doesn't really make any kind of complete meaning, then it must be a noun phrase. But now let's look at the group of words here that I could take care of myself. So here we have I is a subject, could take care is the verb. All right, could take care of myself. So that we have a subject and a verb here, and that shows us that this is a noun clause. So that is how we identify the grammatical name. I don't know if you really followed the steps we followed here. If you really followed it, you will understand that it becomes very simple and interesting when you discover the grammatical principles we apply in identifying grammatical names and functions. Now we have identified the grammatical name here, and so we come to the solution. Then we look at the question alphabet is H, and our solution should be solution H, and then we have question I, and then solution I. All right, HI, and we write noun clause. This gives you clear, good mark here, because this is how to answer the question in your WAEC exam or NECO exam or NAPTEP exam or any other English exam that you are going to sit. All right. Then let's look at the grammatical function. What is its function? are in the sentence, all right? Okay, so how do we discover? Now, we discover it by examining the particular word that shares a border with it, all right? Now, we could also use the sentence analysis technique, all right? And we can start here to analyze the sentence. I discovered. This is the subject. Discovered is the verb. And then discovered here is an action verb. And what follows an action verb is essentially an object. All right? It's essentially an object. I discovered. Discovered what? All right? And then what follows here in this analysis is essentially, let me cancel the previous analysis we made, the marks we use here. Where I'm beginning a new analysis. Now, the subject begins here. I is the subject, discovered is the verb. And then we put a border here. And then this is the object. I discovered that I could take care of myself. Now, how do we know, of course, that this also is not only the object, but it is certainly a noun? We can replace this with a single word, which is a noun. I discovered dash. Discovered what? You know, I discovered myself. Myself can be there. I discovered something. Something can be there. I discovered some money. All right. I discovered a theory. I discovered, you know, anything can be there. Anything that is a noun can be there, or a noun phrase can be here. So, and that is an object. You know, I discovered something. All right. So that is an object. The object is the receiver of the action reported by the verb in a sentence. So when we have a word that comes after the verb and it is receiving an action, then that particular word or group of words is essentially an object. Now, having discovered the function of this expression, then we come to the solution and we write II and we write object of the verb discovered. That gives you a clear good mark here. All right, so I want you to really learn how we identify grammatical names and functions in the West African Senior School Certificate examinations. Many candidates always find it difficult to answer the questions in this particular section, and that is why we are devoting this video to explaining step by step how to identify the grammatical names and functions in this type of exam. Now, we are now going to the West African School Certificate examination of June 2018. Again, we have theory question 6. You can see that WAEC repeats the pattern of question, the way they ask question, and that is why one of the most effective way of preparing for the West African Senior School Certificate examination is to look at the past questions, you know, to use the past questions. That is a very effective way of preparing for your next West African Senior School Certificate examination. All right, so, and that gives you idea to the fact that, you know, if you are preparing for any of these external or internal English exam, this channel is the place to come. Is the place where you will find material, you will find sufficient resources to help you prepare adequately for your West African Senior School Certificate examination. All right, so let's look at this. The full sentence that the expression for this question was taken from is as follows. That is in the passage. Everybody was impressed with the feats which went along with the hilarious drumming. Now, the underlined expression here is which went along with the hilarious drumming. All right, so then in the questions, which of course is question G, the alphabet G is the question alphabet here. This underlined expression was presented here, which went along with the hilarious drumming. And then two questions have been asked concerning this expression. Question I, what grammatical name is given to the above expression as used in the passage? Again, you see a clear repetition of the pattern of questioning done by Wassce here. So, of course, when you use past questions in preparing for your next West African School Certificate examination, you can be almost 100% sure that you are going to meet a similar type of question. And if you prepare and learn how to answer the question, of course, you will find it quite easy to answer. That is exactly what we are trying to show you in today's video. Then question II, what is its function? The same questions. What differs is the grammatical expression, but the same set of questions are asked on a new type of expression lifted from the passage each time. Now let's look at how we are going to first find the grammatical name. What do we do at this stage? I want to pause a little bit and give you time to figure out the kind of principles we used in answering solving previous questions. I want you to try to attempt by yourself using these grammatical principles to figure out the grammatical name given to this underlined expression here. What do we do here? Just a little while, all right? Figure it out by yourself. What is the first principle we are going to apply here? That's right. We are going to apply the border principle. Now, this is the given expression, the underlined expression. So here we form a border here. We use the border principle. The next thing is for us to identify the word that shares the common border or boundary with the underlined expression. And what is its word class? The word class here is a noun, is the name of something. The feats is the name of something, all right? Everybody was impressed with the feats which went along with the hilarious drumming. When you talk of feats here, it could refer to achievement. Maybe everybody was impressed with the achievements or something like that, which went along with the hilarious drumming. Or it could be something similar to achievement or actions, if you like, or movements or anything, but certainly it's a noun. All right, so it's the name of something that shows you it's a noun. All right, okay, so now having identified the border and having identified that it is a noun that shares the same common border with this expression, that of course is already giving us clues, because if a particular expression shares a common border with a noun, then that expression must be telling us more about the noun. All right? All right. So that is exactly the way it is, because English words are like chameleons. Chameleons change their color according to their physical environment. In the same way, English words change their meanings according to their linguistic environment. Now, what do we call a linguistic environment? It's all about the words that share a common boundary with the expression we are examining. In this case, this expression underlined here, which went along with the hilarious drumming. All right, so now let's go a little bit further and use the questioning method. All right, we almost already have some idea as to what this underlined expression should be, because since it should be telling us something more about a noun, then of course we know it is obviously an adjective or an adjectival phrase or an adjectival clause that tells us something about a noun. But we should not conclude yet. Let's use our grammatical tool or principle, which is the questioning method. How do we do it? We again use the elimination before we come with the questioning. We eliminate the given expression, which is what we call the elimination method. Okay, so let's eliminate this, and then we restate the incomplete part of the sentence. Now, what do we do? Everybody was impressed with the feats. Full stop. You see, we put a full stop here. We eliminate which went along with the hilarious drumming. Now, a question arises naturally, and I want you to figure out the question. The question that arises will determine the information, the type of information that should fit in here, and the type of information will give us a clue as to the grammatical name of that particular expression. Everybody was impressed with the feats. Full stop. The question that arises naturally is which feats? All right, which feats? Now, anything that answers the question which is essentially an adjective or an adjectival phrase or an adjectival clause. If it is a single word, then it's an adjective. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun, but here it's not a single word, so it's not an adjective. If it is a group of words, then it is either an adjectival phrase or an adjectival clause, but here it is really a group of words. How do we differentiate between an adjectival phrase and an adjectival clause? An adjectival phrase is simply a fragment that doesn't contain a subject and a verb, but an adjectival clause contains a subject and a verb. Now let's examine this. The verb obviously here is wait. All right? All right. So now this is supposed to be a subject, then this is a verb. So already we have a subject and a verb, and then we have an adjunct that completes the meaning of the verb. So we have something, a structure that shows that this is a clause. And because this clause is telling us more about a noun, obviously it's an adjectival clause. Another name for adjectival clause is a relative clause. I have uploaded a video with the title, How to Use Relative Clauses in English. I want you to look for that particular video. It will show you more about adjectival clauses, which we also call relative clauses. Now, having identified the grammatical name, in our solution we come to the question alphabet, which is G. Then we write G here. Then the specific question is I, and then we simply write adjectival clause. All right? That gives us a clear good here. Then what is its function? Usually we know that an adjective modifies a noun. What is the noun being modified here? Fits. So here we come to I, and we write modifies the noun fits. and that gives us a clear good. So I hope you have again understood the steps that you should take whenever you are confronted with this type of question. Then the last but not the least, the West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2017. Again, theory question 6, repeated pattern of questioning by Wassce here. Then the full sentence in the passage from which the underlined expression was taken reads as follows. All right? As he dragged it to the surface, we screamed in sudden terror. As he dragged it to the surface, we screamed in sudden terror. And the underlined expression is as he dragged it to the surface. Now, the question alphabet here again is G, and then the expression that is taken from that passage, which is underlined there, is as he dragged it to the surface. Then two questions again are asked, similar to the previous questions we already solved. Question I, what grammatical name is given to the above expression as used in the passage? II, what is its function? Basically the same questions. Now, let's now use the same principles we earlier used. What do we use here? We use the border principle as it dragged it to the surface. It shares a common border with we screamed. Of course, we screamed. All right? As it dragged it to the surface, we screamed. Now, let's, having identified the border here, then the next thing we see here is we screamed. And our focus will be on the action here because we are looking at the action. We screamed. This is a verb, screamed. We screamed. All right? As we dragged it to the surface, we screamed. All right. Now, let's now eliminate this underlined expression, and then let's echo the remaining part of the sentence and raise a question. We come here and we say, we screamed in sudden terror. All right. So, we screamed in sudden terror. There are different types of questions that will naturally arise. All right? Now, one of the questions that should arise, we screamed in sudden terror. Why? Why did we scream in sudden terror? Then another possible question, when? When did we scream in sudden terror? Another question is, where? Where did we, or when? When and where and how? You know, these are possible questions. Different WH questions. As he dragged it to the surface, we screamed in sudden terror. Now, let's look at this expression, and that will give us a clue as to what type of question that it is providing answer to. As it dragged it to the surface, we screamed in sudden terror. All right? Now, this is giving us idea as to the time we screamed was the time was the same time that he dragged it to the surface. At that very point, when he dragged it to the surface, we screamed. So it is showing us, it is describing time. It has more to do with timing than any other type of question we may ask. As he dragged it to the surface, the same time that as he was dragging it, and then it comes to the surface, the moment we noticed what has been dragged to the surface, we screamed in sudden terror. So it's talking about time. As he dragged it to the surface, we screamed in sudden terror. Now, anything that will answer the question when, which is about time, is an adverb. If it's a single word, it's an adverb. Then, if it is a group of words, it can be an adverbial phrase or an adverbial clause. Now, we have discovered that this is not a single word, so it's not an adverb. It's a group of words. Then we have to verify whether it is an adverbial phrase or an adverbial clause. Now, if it is a mere fragment that doesn't contain a subject and a verb, then we can conclude it's an adverbial phrase. But if it contains a subject and a verb, then it's an adverbial clause. So let's look at it. As he dragged it, already we can spot he here as a subject. We can look at a subject here already. He dragged. Then dragged is a verb. So we can already spot a subject and a verb here. So this shows us it's an adverbial clause. And since it is talking about time, there are different types of adverbs. You have an adverb of place that answers the question where. We have an adverb of time that answers the question when. We have an adverb of reason that answers the question why. We have an adverb of manner that answers the question how, and so on and so forth. All right, so but this one answers the question when, so it's an adverbial clause of time. Having identified the grammatical name, then we come here and we identify the question alphabet G. Make sure you always specifically include the alphabet question in your solution, because that shows the examiner that you know exactly what you are doing. Some candidates, they just mess everything up. When the examiner gives them a question alphabet, they turn it into a number. All right? And because A, B, C, D, E, F, G, this tallies with number 7, you see them coming here to write number 7. And in fact, that messes up your entire work. You are solving a question that the examiner didn't ask. The question asked by the examiner is question G, not question 7. So make sure in your solution you use the alphabet question. So here we come to the solution, we write G. And then the specific question is question I, is not question A, is not question 1, is question I, Roman figure. So write it down here, I. And then you simply write the grammatical name, which is adverbial clause of time. And that gives you a clear good. Then the grammatical function, having identified the name, of course the function becomes easy, because we know that an adverb or an adverbial clause or an adverbial phrase usually modifies a verb. A noun modifies an adjective, but an adverb modifies a verb. So let's look at it here. What is the verb here? Screamed. So we come to our solution II, and we write modifies the verb screamed. And that gives us a clear good mark here. All right, so I hope you have really, if you have followed these steps meticulously, I am sure you must have learned the principles that will help you to answer questions correctly in this section of the West African School Certificate Examination. And that is how it has been in today's video. We have been able to look at how to identify grammatical names and functions in the West African Senior School Certificate Examination English. And the same thing applies to NECO, or National Examinations Council Senior School Certificate Examination, or even NAPTEP, or any other English exam for that matter. So if you have enjoyed today's video, do like the video and share the video with your friends and relations. If you have not subscribed to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Click on the bell icon as well, so that when the next video goes live on this channel, you will be the first to receive instant notification. So you won't miss any new video uploaded on this channel. And all the videos are free of charge. Subscription is free as well. So it's a win-win situation when you subscribe to this channel and when you gain free access to all the videos that will help you to learn English in a very, very interesting manner, as you have seen in today's video. And if you also look up other videos on this channel, you will discover that these are quality video lessons that will help you to learn English and learn them in a very interesting manner. You learn them in a way that is simplified, in a way that makes it quite easy for you to learn. If you have any questions, any concerns, any comments, any suggestions, please leave your comments in the comments box below. If you have any topic in mind that is really giving you some problematic moments, giving you some issues, you are having difficulties, getting to understand how to use certain grammatical structures, or even if it has to do with writing skills, whatever it is, you can suggest a topic and you can be sure I will respond with dispatch. I want to thank you for being part of today's video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye bye for now and remain blessed.